Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Quality Talks podcast with myself, Chris Henderson, and I'm joined alongside co host Stuart Day. We've got our second episode lined up for us today where we're going to explore the question, what is quality? But before we do that, we wanted to obviously just go into what's been happening across the last 4 weeks since our first episode. And we did previously ask the question of what is quality on our LinkedIn channel. And we want to obviously explore some of your comments and give you a little rundown of what's been going on before we get into it. So, without further ado, if I ask you, Stu, what's been going on in the last 4 weeks for you?
Yeah, I mean, what hasn't? Firstly, hi everyone. Don't forget to say hi to the audience
Yeah.
and all the listeners and all the
Hi,
all the
everyone.
all the viewers. Um, so yeah, thank you for hopefully rejoining and coming back. Some new, hopefully we've got some new viewers and new listeners as well. Um, and just thank you to everybody that's currently watched and listened to episode one. I think looking at the views on YouTube. We've had over 300 views on the first episode, which blows my mind. Let's put it that way. And there's 68 subscribers. We've had listens and follows on Spotify, and just thank you. Like literally, just thank you. We've done one episode. The feedback we've had has been great, and there's been some stuff from that as well that we're able to kind of take into this episode. So yeah, just a massive thank you to everybody, and hopefully, you know, you'll enjoy this episode just as much, and we'll just keep growing from here. So I mean, well, what's been happening in the last 4 weeks? I haven't got any taller, that's for sure. I know that much. But I have started a new role. I'm now in a role at Capital One, the head of quality at Capital One. So that's been really sort of interesting, and it's definitely sort of re-energized me in terms of you know going somewhere new and meeting new people, and looking at different challenges and stuff like that. And actually, interestingly enough, we're very much on that sort of pathway at the moment about trying to learn about what quality really means in their context, in financial services and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot more that will come out of that, I'm sure, over the coming weeks and months. And but that's a real big thing for me in terms of what's been happening. And actually, interestingly enough, yesterday evening we were up in Leeds, so um, and a meetup that was hosted by 1010. So 1010 are a Leeds-based company who focus on early careers and consultancy in quality engineering, taking graduates in and training them up in quality engineering and stuff like that. And they put on a really cool event up in Leeds yesterday evening, where we had a panel discussion around speed versus quality. So there was a lot of talk in that about what quality means, and um, I mean, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it was recorded. They may be sharing it, so I don't want to give away any sort of insights as such. But what was very clear from that was, you know, there isn't a cookie cutter answer to a lot of these things, right? So we're going to explore that a lot more in this episode, right? Um, and I think also, and we were just talking before we came on air, right, Chris, about quality in our own lives and how that kind of takes really different perspectives based on different things and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about this episode. Um, and I think all the interaction we've had on LinkedIn, thank you everybody. We've had some great comments. We're going to explore them a little bit as we go through. And also, there's going to be opportunity for people to win some quality talks merch. Um, so yeah, so that's exciting as well. We'll draw the winner as we at some point throughout the show. So yeah, but again, Chris, what's been going on from your side?
Not as exciting as yours or as fun packed, but I've had an opportunity to go on holiday and take some time away, relax. Similar to you, I started a new position, obviously, same company, but just with a slightly different focus than what I previously had. But again, it's a exciting opportunity for us. It's very much people focused, and how do we develop our talent pipelines, create the right opportunities for people, um, get out of some of the constraints that we've previously had, especially within our industry, and just being kind of focused towards testing and exploring how do we create opportunities and pathways that cross boundaries between disciplines, and just open our eyes a little bit more to different experiences and stuff, and evolve our quality roles that we have. So exciting. Had a lot of time to think about it, listen to a lot of other podcasts as well, where I was lying on that sun lounger,
Yeah,
and had a lot of time to think about the question that we put out as well, being what is quality. I asked myself that a lot on holiday, and yeah, so sometimes my expectations were through the roof, and sometimes I realised I had none at all. And I think, like, to your point before, like, nothing is like that is really straight cut, and that's the beauty of it. And hopefully we'll explore a little bit more what that means, and we'll discover a little bit more from your perspectives as well, from the answers to the question that we put out on LinkedIn, and share your thoughts and views with the listeners if they haven't already read it. So
yeah, yeah,
I don't know if you
definitely.
maybe want to kick us off, and maybe even talk about initially what you think quality is from your own perspective, Stu.
Yeah, I definitely can do. I think, but before we do that, I have a question for you, Chris. Right now,
Go
this
for
is
it.
completely off script. You don't know what's coming.
Go on. No, I don't. Especially when you
Come on,
diverted me questions.
being a Geordie, right? Being a
Go on,
Geordie,
then.
and we know you don't always get a lot of sun up in Newcastle. Uh, what are the quality of your tan lines like?
They're actually brilliant. For, for those of you who already know us, you know I'm a keen golfer, and we went away for a week in Mallorca. I got a little bit of a tan, and then I played 36 holes the other Sunday, and forgot my sun cream and got burned. So yeah, I don't know if you can probably see it, but I've got quite the t-shirt tan going on. So if you've got any advice and tips of how I can blend that one out without disgracing me neighbours in the garden taking my t-shirt off, then yeah, absolutely share your thoughts with us,
I,
please.
thi- I, I think that's brilliant that you had a week in Mallorca, come back to Newcastle, and then got burnt. I think that's superb. But yeah, so I think as you know, me and Chris, before we came on air, me and Chris were having a conversation around obviously this episode, and just generally about the question that we were asking in the episode. And I know from my perspective, in the last episode we talked about our careers and how long we've been in the industry and stuff, and I'll bring that back to having been in the industry for 25 years. My view and mindset around quality has changed massively. I mean, I can honestly say at the beginning of my career, quality wasn't even at the forefront of my mind. Even what was at the forefront of my mind was testing and does this thing do this thing? Um, and it was only as sort of I progressed through my career and moved through into different roles and was faced with different, I guess, scenarios through just the roles that I was doing, and EasyJet with the airlines, and customers became more of a thing and more of a focus, and understanding the impact of something. And I mean, I remember at EasyJet, if there was something going on at the airport, and nothing to do with us, right? I might add, right? But if there was something going on at the airport and the flights were delayed, we didn't go over to the terminal with our EasyJet passes on, through fear that people will come up to us and start asking us what's going on with the flights and stuff like that. That's how high impacting it is emotionally and stuff. And I think that really started um, kind of like changing my, I guess, understanding of the industry that we work in, and actually how quality, the concept of quality is, it really is a big deal, but it's different for everybody. Um, and over the years, I've obviously that's become more at the forefront of my mind, and thinking about the customer, and how the customer plays into this, and actually what we're doing is delivering something to a customer and customer expectations. But then who's the customer, right? Is it somebody at the end of a food chain somewhere, or is it all the people in between that are also interacting with this? Is it a call center somewhere that if something goes wrong they get, and it's just like, wow, right? So it really, my sort of thought pattern around it is just completely evolved over time. Um, and now I'm very much more, everything starts there in terms of understanding, having some keen understanding around who your customers are, and what their expectations are, and how can I sort of mimic that in a way that gives us confidence that we're meeting those expectations of the customer, and not just at a moment in time, but we're doing it in a way that throughout a process we're we're building up to that kind of big reveal, um, and being really proactive around it. And there's a lot around, for me, early in my career, everything was quantitative measures. How many tests have we got? How many are passing? How many are failing? You know, how many automation tests do we have? How many bugs do we have? Now, from a bug perspective, there was that whole, severity, and priority piece, which kind of then you think, oh, well, yeah, that's obviously the quality metric, right? In terms of, it's not the number, it's actually the impact that those things have. But often it was focused on the how many, right? And not really getting down into the detail of the what is the impact of this, the real impact of this thing, rather than, well, this person can't book a flight. It could mean that they can't go and visit their family in whatever country if they really. There's a bigger impact on things. So my thinking around it has really really evolved, and then obviously how you achieve the right level of quality, and it's massively subjective, and how that then plays into our own lives. Every single day, I'm going to go deep now. Every single day in our lives, we are faced with, consciously or subconsciously, quality related examples,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it could be the toothbrush you're using. Literally, like I want a soft toothbrush. No, I want a hard toothbrush. I want a electric toothbrush. I want one that's not going to make my gums bleed. Uh, yeah, I mean, simple things like that. But every minute of every day, we're faced with that, and we don't even know it. We just subconsciously have a standard and expectation in our mind. And the challenge for organizations is, how do you extract that information from your customer to build the right thing? It's why it's so exciting, right? And actually why our roles are, in my opinion, some of the best roles in tech and software engineering, and not just software engineering, right? But in those sort of industries where you're servicing a customer needs. So yeah, I mean, I went a little bit deep there, but I think the my mindset has evolved massively, and it will continue to evolve. I'll continue to learn more about it. I'll continue to delve into different concepts around it and stuff. So So yeah, but I'm interested as well to understand it from your perspective, Chris, like starting in a different industry as well, and
Yeah.
then you know
I,
where it's gone.
so I was just thinking about that when you were talking, so looking back at my experience when I was in the motor manufacturing industry, so because the scale of the operation was so large, being within that kind of factory environment and so much going around you on a day-to-day basis, it's so easy for you to get consumed by the job at hand and the part that you're playing in that operation, and losing sight of the purpose and the value you're trying to deliver to the end user, that ultimately that person or that family who's buying that vehicle. And it wasn't until really I made me transition into technology that I really started to gain more insight into the value of being really customer focused and exploring the diversity of the customers and their particular needs. So we deliver like tech solutions and products to customers, but we don't just think about what do we initially need to solve. We got to think broader than that. We got to think about all the potential ways in which they could use the product, benefit from the product. How can we then potentially build upon that and extend the range going forward? Because we will iteratively build upon that. And the appreciation I now have for customer feedback. Now, this is something that when we hear about customer feedback, we always like if you go on any kind of trip advisor, you always go to the worst reviews, right? But it's really important to explore all of the reviews in their entirety. So from the 5 stars to the 1 stars, that gives you appreciation for again that diversity and what people are expecting from a particular product or a service, and what quality really does mean to them. Because to your point before, it will be so different to each individual because we all have different expectations, and it's important to keep that in mind, especially in competitive industries where you're trying to keep your existing customer base, but also grow into new customer markets. Um, it's by thinking outside of the box. That's the only way you're going to really attract new customers. So for me, it's been a progressive change, like over time, learning from each company that I've been at, from motor manufacturing industry, into the different roles I've had in tech, and also working in a consultancy as well, previously, and experiencing the range of different clients that we'll have, and building products for them for their own services and then their own customers as well. So we almost have kind of two customers to consider in that particular scenario. But like yourself, it's something that's forever growing. I don't think we can ever fully understand the our customers' needs as a whole, and it's something that we have to try and bridge the gap and move more and more closer to our customers, continue to build those relationships, but also allow them a platform to come forward and speak about their experiences. And again, not like we talk about psychologically safe environments, create that for our customers. Don't let them be trolled or criticized for raising concerns that they've had through bad experiences.
Yeah,
This is an opportunity for companies to learn and grow, and we should appreciate kind of all feedback. So
yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. You used a very powerful word there, value. Right? What is one person's value won't be another person's value, or somebody will extract more value out of something than somebody else. Um, and just coming back to the meetup last night as an example, going into that and doing that panel discussion, the concept of doing it and doing it on that topic was kind of like, we think this will bring a lot of value to people, but we didn't really know, and often with that, even like those sort of events, you need to do a little bit of pre-work to kind of gain some understanding of, is this topic even interesting or to people? And and sometimes you'll get feedback on that in terms of the amount of people that sign up or don't sign up or do turn up or
Hmm.
don't turn up. But in the moment, feedback is really powerful. Like, we did that session last night. We had an amazing panel. I did some facilitation of the discussion. The engagement we got from the audience afterwards was real, like in the moment feedback, because they were asking questions, they were getting into the conversation, and it felt, in that moment you were like, right, this is kind of feels like it's adding value. Let's keep rolling with this. And so, but again, in other situations, that feedback loop can be take longer, and you don't have
Yeah.
that in the moment feedback. So, like you say, with like TripAdvisor, you really need to kind of go through things and almost understand where people are coming from, and do they align to your expectations? Because if this person expected X and you're expecting Y, is their review as valuable to you as, it's like even the quality of the reviews about the quality of the whatever. you know I told you this episode's blowing people's minds already. um so yeah, I mean, it really is about that value, um and that value add. Now again, um traveling up to Leeds yesterday, right? So Vern. I mean,
Yes.
everybody knows Vern.
Everybody knows them.
Everybody knows Vern, and if you don't know Vern, you need to get to know Vern, right? Hi Vern, right? When you watch this is your shout out. You're not getting any more. Um,
He even
so
sat in your seat a few weeks ago, didn't
he
he?
did. I had a rival podcaster, Vernon Richards, from the Vernon Richard podcast, might I say, which is very good. He came here for lunch, and he had the audacity to come and sit in this chair, wear this hat, and have a photo taken with my sign. All right. Now, I don't know whether Richard Bradshaw knows this or not yet, but he will now. And also, I'll share the photos on LinkedIn at some point so that everybody can see them. But no, me and Vern travelled up to Leeds together, right? So, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm based in the Midlands. Vern's based in the Midlands, but we're at the other sort of parts. He's Leicester way, I'm Peterborough way, that kind of thing. So different train lines, right? So Vern came over this way, and we travelled up on the train line out of Peterborough, and he was so impressed with like how easy it was and how direct it was, and there was the versus what his travel would have been like from Leicester. But there's people that will travel out of Peterborough every day, and they'll be like, "Oh, the train service isn't great," and because their expectations have become something, and they're not meeting their expectations. Whereas, in that situation, somebody else's expectations are different. Like, it's amazing. It's just a really weird dynamic, right? So, as a business, how do you manage those things? It's really difficult, and understanding what quality means within an organization, taking that time to really delve into that and understanding your customers, and to your point, having a way of gathering that feedback, whether it be in the moment, whether it be longer term, like really investing in those mechanisms to get that information is really powerful, and it needs to be something that I think is done more and more and more. Else you're just, in my mind, you're just working blind, because there's so many nuances, and there's layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, right? Um, and I think, look, I'm gonna, if we'll go into the LinkedIn posts, right? And this is
Yeah,
a
of course.
great example. And thank you to everybody that um, shared their thoughts with this.
Yeah, there's some really great thoughts and views.
Some really great thoughts and views. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna just read them all out, um, and just take that time to do that. Um, and as I'm doing that, clearly I haven't even got the right thing open. I mean, so the quality of my you know preparation has been really bad. So
While you're finding that, in any way, Stu, I
go for it.
think like the I was thinking back there when you were talking, and you were talking about like customers' expectations and stuff like that, and like in today's world, our expectations get set pretty quickly, and we get used to a certain standard, and then expect a lot more the next time. Whereas I can remember, and that's the challenge that we face, especially with so much competition out there as well. Whereas you think back to scenarios when we first start getting mobile phones, and people were still impressed years down the line that we could write into a phone instead of just being able to have a phone call. We could send text messages, or that you could get a flashing aerial that you could screw on, and that satisfied the customer's needs and
Flip
provided the
phones.
values. Flip phones as well, and now you see updates are having to be done on such a regular basis
Yeah,
to satisfy the customers' expectations and demand
yeah,
for better and better services.
yeah. And with that demand comes a need for speed as well.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
so
And
the faster
finding
your
that
feed
right balance, right?
and finding that right balance, and that's a whole different episode, right? Because that's exactly what we were
And
talking about last night. So
and will it ever slow down? Will the expectations ever regress and go back?
yeah, I
Who
mean, it's
knows?
interesting. It is interesting because you've got some people that are now literally going back to the older type phones, right, to try and disconnect from the world, and so even people's priorities are changing and needs are changing again. So yeah, it is really weird. But I've managed to get all the comments up. So again, thank you everybody that's taken time to do this. So I'm literally just going to go down the list. These aren't in order that people posted them, by the way, because love you LinkedIn. Oh no, I'm going to actually. Do you know what? I am going to change them to be in the order that they were posted because I think it's fair. Ha.
See, somebody
So
on LinkedIn thought about that scenario.
exactly, I have the option to do it. So let's kick it off, right? So Simon Pryor, I'm sure a lot of people know Simon. Simon's also got another great podcast, Testing Peers, and Simon's shared his thoughts in terms of quality. Quality is that intangible fuzziness you feel when something works without friction. Doesn't mean it's bug free, but it does what the customer needs in a way that makes them happy to use it. So it's really about that experience of the way it makes you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and you get that little warm fuzzy feeling, or it's like, yeah, I like this, and then you come back for more stuff. That's how I'm feeling about that one. I don't feel like that about the comment. It's like, ooh. Um, Chris Layton. So Chris is, hey Chris. So Chris, product manager. We know Chris from working at Dunelm together before. Um, now I love this from Chris, right? So this is going to be philosophical when somebody says not to get too philosophical, right? That's the first part. So thanks, Chris, for sort of like preparing us. But for me, quality should exist in both actuality and potentiality. The quality of the product is linked to its purpose or function now and in the future. Quality can also be quite nuanced, as definitions of quality can vary from person to person. What we've been talking about there, business
Absolutely.
to business, kind of saying. So context is important when defining quality. An example would be something like a pair of jeans from Primark versus a pair of Levi's. My definition of quality for each will differ due to my expectations, purpose/function of it now and in the future, but it may be the same as someone. It may not be the same as someone else's. So that's really having that example there. It's like and actually, you could buy a pair of jeans from Primark and you could buy a pair of jeans from Levi's, and they both serve the purpose that you bought them for. So the quality is absolutely bang on for what you need, right? Versus somebody could buy one from Primark and go, "These are rubbish."
I really like
Put them
what
into a
he
challenge.
touched on at the start of that as well. Like thinking not just about the value that you want to deliver to the customer in that moment, say
Yeah,
for that particular release, but what is the longevity of quality within this product, and how do we constantly build upon that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, the sustainable quality. You know, how, like you say, how do you build upon that kind of moving forward? And part of that is obviously keep getting that feedback as well, because that, I guess, that benchmark changes constantly. Now, your expectations. If you deliver something of high quality, it meets their, immediately their expectations go up. Well, this is great. I expect the same moving forward. And if you take a dip, you see it on reviews on apps, right? This app was amazing the last update. This update, not so much.
And that's why
Um,
you got to keep in mind, like when you're building things, like build in a way that allows you to adapt to change really quickly.
yeah,
Back to our comment before about like the speed and performance of things, like have that in mind, because there may be instances where something is delivered and it is not meeting the quality expectations of your customer. So how do you then build upon that and release something at speed back to your customer to keep their attention of them and deliver that value that they first seek?
yeah. Next up, we have David Mully. Now, I think, Chris, you know David.
I do, yeah, yeah. Best man at
Yeah,
my wedding, like
best
best
man
mate,
at your
like
wedding.
yeah.
I need to have a chat with David about the quality of the wedding, then, don't I? I think that's or the quality of the
he,
stag
he,
do. Maybe
he,
that's
he, he
another
might,
conversation.
yeah, he might not remember.
Fair play to you, David. So, David, I'm just reading off of like LinkedIn um, titles here. So, after sales inventory control, right? So, obviously, slightly different industry to software, that kind of thing. But he's put here. So, my spin on quality comes from manufacturing world and my time inspecting vehicles. Now, obviously, that's kind of where you started, Chris, right?
Yeah, we worked alongside each other back on the production line, and
Yeah,
similar to me, David's still within the motor manufacturing industry, but his focus is less on the actual vehicle itself and on the parts and distribution of those, and the quality
yeah,
of the parts that they bring into that manufacturing environment. So,
yeah. Hold that thought. That's just triggered something in my mind, actually. So, quality for me is attention to detail and taking pride in your work, putting yourself in the shoes of the customer. If you would be happy with what is going out the door, it's making sure that everything meets the highest standards before it goes out the door to the end customer. So, again, in the motor industry, there's a huge safety element,
absolutely, yeah.
right? So to your point about all the different parts that make it's not just the shiny new vehicle that gets delivered from the outside looking in, it's all those parts, right? And there's that real safety element that has to play into that. So thank you, David. Love to hear more about that. Actually, maybe we can get you on at some point on another episode, so you and Chris can catch up and I can just learn some stuff. Not about Chris's honeymoon or not honeymoon. Why would he be on your honeymoon? I don't know. Right, stag do maybe. So yeah. Next up, Tom Keeber. So Tom's head of quality at Daniel. So hey Tom, quality is something that is important to people that are important to you at some point. I think that's really interesting, right? In terms of like again, your customers at that moment in time, what are their needs? So really focusing on that. Their needs right now might be not their needs, and so I think it's good to think about who your customer is. We often think about the end user, and they are the biggest stakeholder. But in a software world, I think there are lots of customers. The first line support wanting quality monitoring and alerting, the software engineers waiting to easily change and add features, the quality advocates wanting quality test feedback, as some examples, but by no means all. Layers.
I really like that first point as well. Like, how well do you really know your customer? And
Mm,
as he touched on, at that point in time, do you make
yeah,
the assumption that once you've got some feedback, that's it, we know our customer and that's that's always going to be how our customer thinks and what they expect? Or do you always encourage feedback conversations and build up that picture on a regular basis to understand changes in your customers' needs, or
Yeah,
whether your customer base has completely changed altogether, and or whether your business needs to make a pivotal shift in order to keep up with those demands? So I think that's a really important aspect, is understanding
yeah.
the timing of that assumption you're making about knowing your customer.
Blockbuster Video. How well did Blockbuster Video know their customers when they were basically saying Netflix ain't going to become anything? We won't go into that.
I only
So,
just remember Blockbuster though, like,
oh,
you know,
shut up.
because I'm a
Shut
lot
up.
younger than you, though, Stu. So you'll remember it really well,
I'm,
right?
oh, honestly, this is a family show. Stop it. I could get really. No, I'm not. Oh, man. Oh, that's thrown me right off now. Okay, so next up, David Norshaw. Gorgeous Dave. All right, Dave. So anybody that knows Dave or meets Dave, or if you're linked in with him, his beard is amazing, and I've got such beard envy with Dave. And yeah,
Now that is a
totally,
quality beard.
it's a quality beard, right? And he's got a quality smile to go with it as well. So just saying, gorgeous. That's where he gets the name Gorgeous Dave. So quality is subjective, right? Not when it comes to his beard, but quality is subjective. A process, product, or any solution in general can be perceived as high quality or low quality based on the end user it's put in front of and the value they expect from it. He gives an example here. So a Ferrari is generally considered a high quality car with high quality build. Um, but a family of five who needs to make school runs and shopping trips every day probably won't see it as such. I think that's interesting because there's a couple of things that play into that for me. It's like is there an expectation the more you pay, the higher the quality is? Is there a natural expectation that is actually the case? And I think in some cases it is, right? If I'm paying, £1,000 for a car, my expectations may be lower. If I'm paying £100,000 for a car, my expectations are probably going to be way, way, way up here. But does it
Mhm.
actually mean it's better in terms of, are you getting that much more value out of it? Don't know.
Subjective, isn't it?
Subjective, absolutely. And I think it's like, when people talk about the value of something, often it's like the value of X. Oh well, that's too expensive, but it might not be to somebody else. As in, they're willing to pay that because it gives them the value of what they expect. I think I just yeah. Um, it's just I told you crazy episode already. My head's spinning. Um, okay, so next up, Azza Hussein. Hey Az, how you doing, man? When I think of quality, I think of collaboration, ownership, taking pride in what you do. It's all about delivering the right value in the right way, depending on who it's for. It's not just about testing, it's a mindset, it's a culture. When done properly, it exudes confidence in everyone about everything. Success is quality and quality is success. I mean, that's a poster there, right? But what I like there is he's gone for the more human side of things
Mhm.
as well, right? So the collaboration, so you know, good collaboration, good communication helps the quality you build because you get a better, you're more aligned and stuff like that. Um, yeah, and kind of coming back to that, delivering the right value in the right way, understanding how you get there is really key on in that scenario.
Like the bit that stands out to me is the confidence element, like
Yeah.
you being able to build those communications and collaborate with people in a way that will build confidence within your teams and within your business that you are delivering a valuable product to your customer, but also building confidence from your customer's perspective. They have confidence that you are able to deliver the right value to them as well. And that's why they entrust in you and stay with you when other competitors and stuff may be trying to offer something similar, but they come to you because they have that confidence that you're able to deliver, you know.
Mm. Yeah. Just excuse me, just on that actually, I'm just thinking, right? I've been with the same broadband provider for some time, right?
Martin
And
Lewis would tell you that's the wrong thing to do. You
I
should
know,
switch.
I know exactly, and that's the thing. But the process to switch sometimes is harder than the just to, it's easier just to stay with, right? Because it's not, and I don't mean the U switch experience or anything like that in terms of how easy it is to go. I want to go from here to here. It's the after part where
Mm-hmm.
you've then got people coming to install and and this, that, and the other, and the amount of people that are like, I've been without broadband for 2 weeks because I changed providers, and you're like, is it worth the effort?
But then that's
I've not
interesting because that goes back to your expectations as a customer and how that's
exactly,
evolved. Now, when
yeah,
you first got dial up broadband back in the days when, you know,
yeah.
you,
You
you,
couldn't make a
you,
phone call
you yeah, you were younger and
like,
stuff. You couldn't make a phone call, and if it took, say, 2 or 3 days to change broadband provider and stuff, would
it
that
wasn't
have been
broadband then.
acceptable? Yeah, well, yeah, dial-up connections, but changing a provider, would that have been an acceptable experience for you as a
Mm,
customer? Probably back then, yes.
yeah,
But now, in such a fast-paced environment where, again, there is a lot more uh, competition out there and stuff, and we demand things like, doesn't matter what it is, we always want something yesterday.
yeah,
That then deters us, to your point, from moving on, because time is now so precious to a customer, and if we can't offer a solution, if there isn't a solution there that enables us to save time, we'll normally deter from doing things like changing
yeah.
provider.
And just to be very clear, anybody that used to use dial-up, right, back in the day, anybody that it might take 2 to 3 days to dial up, let alone change provider. So it'd be like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. I wanna get on the internet, and I want to be on the internet by 10 o'clock. I better start now.
Ring all of your
Nobody can
friends
use the
at
phone. Yeah,
lunchtime. Please don't ring us after 7 o'clock because you're going to interrupt me connection.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, Brilliant. Thank you, Az, for that. Next up, James Prescott. So, James, it's interesting with James actually. James, as the last couple of years, has been very much focused in the data engineering space from a quality perspective. And again, that's a very different world to be in. So James says, I see quality as something quite closely orbiting the concept of value. So James is an example here. All watches can generally tell the time for you. Okay. But from there, watches are perceived differently depending on who the watch is being sold to. A Rolex is valued as a status symbol, where good visual design and an air of authority about the watch is high on the list of requirements. A Casio, love a Casio. One with a calculator, I need to get myself one of them again. A Casio might be more focused on durability in rougher conditions, with water resistance and the like. This means that customers might value aesthetics and luxury lower for that, so your methods and thinking change to adapt. Um, Now, I think it's interesting there, just on that, I've not finished it yet, but what if a Rolex and a Casio cost the same? So is then it just becomes down to functionality. But anyway, now if you have a pretty good looking watch, but you can't tell the time on it, that's when you completely lost sight of the problem you set out to solve, right? Which is a surprisingly common scenario in our industry. I love that last bit there.
Yeah.
It's like, look at my fancy watch. What's the time? Oh, I stopped. Hold on.
The way that a lot of the watches are designed now as well, it doesn't have like the core features, so it does sometimes take you a second or two to actually work out, hold on, what is the time there?
Yeah.
With a lot of them having fancy dials and not having the numbers on these days, and
I mean, I go old school. Look at that. Look, like, just numbers, digital. Bring back the Casio. That's what I say.
but it
But it's
ties
brilliant.
back. What James said there ties in as well with David's comment about a car.
Yeah.
They both do the same core functionality, but beyond the core functionality that you're trying to deliver, what else are you able to do
Yeah.
around that? And that's going to determine what kind of customer base you then do attract.
Yeah. 100%. Interestingly, we talked about this last night, and the whole conversation around need versus want. So I need a device to tell the time. I can basically get one at any price. Right? They all pretty much do the same thing. But
Hmm.
I want one that's flashy, or I want one that's more. All right. I mean, need may play into that as well. To be fair, like, I need a water, resistant, waterproof watch because I go diving. But some people, there is just an element of want there, right? That actually, I want something that's a bit nicer and a bit more of a status symbol, or you know, um,
And on that status symbol, how many times do we now see where people will want something because it does something, like we want a watch because we need it to tell the time,
mm,
but then the person who is the customer of that watch provider then thinks, what else do I want it for? Because they almost have customers themselves for that status appeal. So
mm,
the the other aspects of what that watch might deliver, that Rolex, might not necessarily deep down be for their needs, but it's to satisfy other people's expectations of what that says in terms of status symbol.
yeah, yeah. I know. Oh man,
Getting deep now again.
we're gonna have to come up for air in a minute. I can't handle this too much. Right, Philippa Jennings. Hey Philippa, how you doing? Thank you for your comment and engagement in this. Really appreciate it. So, quality is most definitely subjective, but in terms of the team, there is a need for it to be a shared understanding of what good looks and feels like. I love that, good looks and feels like. Like, almost takes it back to what Simon was saying at the beginning, right? How
Yeah,
does
with
this
that
make you
emotional
feel?
connection. Yeah.
Emotional connection. Considering the customer, the product quality and quality of the processes are measured in terms of that goodness feeling and the correctness of how it works, based on the need of what they want to use it for, or um, so yeah, so I love, it's not always so much about what it does, but how it makes you feel.
And that's what keeps us coming back
Yeah,
to those providers of services or a
exactly.
product, because it does that what we desire it to do. But
Mm,
it's she made a really good point there about like how that makes us feel, and the behavioral aspect that keeps us engaged with a product or a brand, and
mm,
that emotional connection, and no desire then to explore other brands and stuff, because we build that connection up.
yeah, look at me with my broadband
Really important point.
provider. I mean, they're not that great, to be honest. I'm just really lazy, and that plays into it as well, right? I'm too busy recording podcasts and stuff. But funnily enough, I need a really good broadband for a podcast. So maybe that would be my trigger. Cool. So lastly, but absolutely not leastly, right? I want to add that in here. We've got Callum Akehurst Ryan. Callum, Love you, dude. So quality is a subjective term that means fit for purpose. That a person that at a time can do the thing they want to do in the way they want to do it, rather than being perfect. It's about being good enough for doing that activity for that person. Now, I think this is massively where my head's changed, my mindset has changed over time. Right, I remember back in the day, not at the same time as like dial up, but not much after that. When I got into this industry, my mindset was like kind of like, no, this has to work. We can't, you know, almost like that, that gatekeeper feeling. And
Yeah,
often, like
yeah,
people that worked as QAs, and loads of people would be going, "Oh yeah, I know about this, right? You are the gatekeeper. You shall not pass." Right? Um, because it has to be perfect. Well, we've got all these bugs. It has to be perfect. We've got to do it. We need to fix this. We need to fix that. You can't possibly put that out into production. Now for me, it's kind of like, well, what is good enough? Because actually, once we get it into the customer hands, we're probably going to learn way more. Because those things that we're kind of debating here may not actually be that important. The customer will not even care just because we've originally said this is a requirement, or they might not actually care in the long run. So having a way of actually getting stuff out relatively quickly to experiment and get feedback, I think is really important, and that's becoming more and more important as well, because it helps you determine what is the level of quality that's needed. Not gold plating necessarily, and stuff like that. And again, um, sometimes people say, well, quality is non-negotiable. Now, for me, it is negotiable, but you need to have the conversations to understand how is it negotiable, right? And we were talking about like cutting corners, like in delivery, and maybe not following this process to speed things up. Well, at some point, you're probably going to have to come back and rectify that, because you can't keep doing that, because you're probably going to get bitten at something,
yeah.
But there is a moment in time where you can negotiate and go, well, we won't do that now, but we'll come back and resolve it or whatever. And I think that's where massively my mindset has changed over the years.
I
I
really
don't know what
like
your thoughts on it, man.
I really like how Callum's phrased that, and then it kind of puts a spin on some of the previous comments that we first look at the what is the purpose and value we're trying to initially deliver to our customer, and then we start and think beyond that, what else can we deliver
Mm,
alongside that? But to his point, making sure it's good enough,
yeah,
like never losing focus of what is the value we're initially trying to deliver, what is the service we're trying to provide, the problem we're trying to solve for that customer, not losing sight of that and making sure that that is the core of like the decision making process that we make. And if we have to sacrifice some of the additional things that we would like to deliver, then that's fine. We just look at the risk that's associated with that and the impact.
yeah,
But delivering that core functionality is sometimes um, the a real great beneficial aspect, because we can just put it straight out there and then we get feedback a lot quicker, and
yeah,
we then start and understand our customer more, and then we can build upon that to deliver the extra value. So
I,
yeah, I really like that, how
yeah,
he's brought it brings that back round.
yeah. And you mentioned impact there, right? There's obviously risk, but what is
Hmm.
the impact? And actually, not what is the immediate impact, but what is that ripple effect kind of
Yeah,
impact that often we don't look far enough to. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are aware of the post office scandal, and what's been going on there. It's in the news. If you haven't watched the TV series on, I think it's on ITVX, is it? I think, watch it, because it's just a real amazing example. Scary as well, of the impact something can have on so many people in so many different ways. Where, and it started with software, but that ripple effect, and it's still going now, and it's like,
And you see how
okay,
when they initially face those problems, that they lose confidence in the system or the product that they're working with.
mm,
Um, but then, because that was a sustained issue over a period of time, they then lost confidence in the brand.
exactly, and that brand is so important,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? And as you grow as a business, you're even more reliant on your brand. And your brand is everything, right? Your brand is the products you deliver. The brand is the people that work for you. The brand is, it's everything. If your brand suffers, everything else suffers. um so that whole quality, this is a quality brand. I mean, there's a lot of things that come in underneath what that really means, right? It's kind of like to, you know what we've been talking about, but brand is everything, and it's why it's so important.
And with
um
things going like you mentioned there, when things go wrong, like why do you think that is? Like,
mm,
um, so like quite often the lines do often get blurred in terms of like understanding what is quality, and
yeah,
then we do go off track. So, what do
yeah.
you think is the main
I
cause of that?
I I don't think there is one cause. I think that there's multiple reasons, and looking at it over the years, I think one of the big things I've seen is you take your eye off the customer. The
Mm-hmm.
customer no longer seems to be the priority, and understanding your customer no longer seems to be the priority. And you almost get into that place of, you you're comfortable. You think you know your customer. You're going to keep building on the assumption you know your customer, and this backlog of work that comes through, and you're not maybe getting the right level of feedback loops, right? Because you're kind of like, yeah, we know who our customers are, right? And having worked in different industries, we know that through different generations, those customers and their thoughts and their needs and their wants will change, right? Um, and even like day to day, things will change. And I feel like that is kind of the real essence of often what happens, where it's like, are we here to serve the customer and deliver a quality experience, a quality product that meets their needs, that adds value to them, or are we here to make money? Now, as a business, morally, obviously, you need that service that you're providing to your customer should always be the kind of the priority, but you're also trying to make money. And how do you balance those things, and still be, live up to your values as a business, your brand, and making sure that those things are right? And for me, I think it's never take your eye off the customer. We've got so many ways now that we can really connect to the customers and get that feedback, and we don't have to wait too long to get that feedback. Like, we're talking about reviews, there's so many different ways. And actually, while we're on that topic, how do we even know this is a quality podcast, right? Other than what's in the title, we better hope it's a quality, as it's false advertising. But how do we know, right? We kind of get feedback from people, so we've kind of come into this experience with, we've got an idea, we but we don't know whether it's going to serve the needs of everybody that listens. And some people will listen to one episode and never come back. Hopefully they do come back, and next time round it's better. But the feedback we get from anybody that listens is what really is going to make this, successful or not, right? So on that note, any comments, any likes, anything, any, subscriptions, helps us create a better experience for those that are watching, those that are listening. Yeah. Engagement on LinkedIn, connection with the customer, who are the listeners and the viewers. So from our perspective, we need to understand who those people are and how we connect with them and how we get those feedbacks. We've got ways to do it. But I think from my side, I think that those, because everything is subjective, the reason why things get blurred is you take your eye off the customer and you get a little bit comfortable. I mean, as I say, Blockbuster is a great example of that, right? Back in the day, they didn't really understand. Actually, to be fair, probably the customers didn't even understand what they wanted at that point, because Netflix was a whole new experience. So, but now, if somebody was to say, "Oh, we're going to spin up a video store," you know what I mean? It's like, it probably isn't going to be successful. Although retro coming back, who knows? People want their VHS and Betamax. So there's people on this spot. What is a VHS and what the hell is a Betamax? If you don't know what a Betamax is, just watch Only Fools and Horses. And if you don't know what Only Fools and Horses is, please just Google it. But Del
That's
Boy,
me watching Only Fools and Horses tonight because I don't know what a Betamax
did
is.
you not? Oh,
No.
mate, we need to talk. But there's an episode in Only Fools and Horses where Del Boy Del Boy's a right dodgy geezer, right dodgy geezer. Always got stuff he needs to sell and ship or get out there. He opens up a closet and he's got loads of Betamax videos that obviously completely crashed back in the day because VHS took over and VHS understood the market better. But he bought them cheap and he thought it was a great investment, right? But he didn't know his customer. So clearly you couldn't sell them. Anyway, completely off track there. But I think that for me, that's the thing. Keep your eye on that customer and make sure you're understanding that and using those feedback loops is really what makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the same for me, and I think like just from a piece of advice, and I think it's something that's really important to do. Sometimes we get really carried away with the pace in which we need to deliver to satisfy the needs of some of our customers, but sometimes it's worth just prioritizing some time to ask the question within your teams, this very question that we're talking about today: what is
Mm,
quality? Just so
yeah,
that we all have that shared understanding and that we aren't making assumptions and that everybody is aligned. That helps us keep us connected to the business vision and the goals, pulling the insights from the customer, and kind of keeps us on a path where things aren't necessarily going to go wrong because we just started out wrong. We didn't have that fundamental understanding um, amongst those who were trying to deliver the product. So see how it goes. In the next week, the next month, schedule some time in with your team. Ask the question, what is quality, and give people the opportunity to share their views and see what comes up and how we use where there is different views. Highlight them out. Let us know how that experience goes, and also see if there is something in particular that is consistent between everybody's opinions and views that really does connect you all as a team,
yeah,
because we'd love to hear it as well.
yeah, absolutely. And just coming back to obviously the new role that I'm in, that's very much a question that we're trying to answer together now. Is we will be over the coming weeks, so kind of going through that, and just bringing it back to Az's point, right? Collaboration,
Yeah,
right? Collaborate and understand together what it means. As also talked about ownership. You can't really own something if you don't know what it really means. So the whole thing about the team needs to own quality, well, they need to know what they're owning first.
yeah,
And if you don't have that understanding collectively, then you can't really ask anybody to own anything. We can shout around and say, "Oh, quality is everyone's responsibility," and okay, yeah, but what does it mean, right? What does it? So just think about that as well when you're, you know, when you're championing that quality statement, and you know, that kind of like, well, it's a whole team thing, cool, but how do we get to common understanding? And a common understanding is just through collaboration and having those conversations and delving into a lot of what we've been talking about, you know, today on the podcast. And that is the most powerful. You know, it's why we're talking about it. It's not an easy thing to get to an understanding of, but you need to be talking about it to just try and get that alignment. It will make a lot of things easier. And then you've got to figure out how you measure it as well. You know, we talked about value, we talked about risk, the reward, you know, the qualitative metrics versus the quantitative metrics, right? Um, you know, how do you describe quality when you're trying to turn around to something? You've got a number of bugs, and how do you wrap that up into a quality statement rather than a quantity statement, and tell a story about, well, if this was to be shipped like this is potentially the impact, and really wrap that story up and understand, you know, help people understand so that collectively you can make a informed decision. Um, so yeah, I think, you know, with that, again, the measurement side of it is really difficult, because if you don't understand A, what it means, and B, your customer, and you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to be able to say, have we delivered a quality product?
Yeah, it's about building that picture up, isn't it? Because like sometimes we can surface certain information, but without the context that's associated behind it, it doesn't really serve the right value to our teams to have that understanding.
Yeah,
An example of that is Melissa Fisher had put a comment on LinkedIn recently, and it got a lot of traction and a lot of great comments. And thanks again for bringing that forward. And I commented on it as well. And we were exploring like the value of test cases and reporting on the number that we have, and to some of our internal stakeholders. A lot of the time, you can find yourself in a situation where they believe quality is, to your point before, like by the quantity of something. So
mm,
by having, say, 2,000 tests within a particular suite, um, automation suite or manual regression path, that equals quality. But does it?
yeah,
What are we trying to achieve? What is the risk that's associated with tests? Like, are those tests giving us the coverage that we really desire?
yeah,
Do we really understand our products? So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting point to what I said before. It's about understanding and your customer and having the context behind a lot of these insights and piecing things together to build up that overall picture.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, Melissa puts loads of great stuff out, really thought provoking stuff out there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I follow a
you
lot
know,
of her stuff. It's really good.
I think it's great. And if you don't follow Melissa, follow her, definitely. And I'd love to see more of this kind of discussion on LinkedIn and, you know, other platforms, because I think it's so open ended that, you know, we've spent an hour talking about this, right? Every comment that we read had us not necessarily, didn't have a different opinion, but a different context or a slight nuance, and actually there's no right or wrong answer, and that's the thing here, right? But you've got to invest in the time to figure it out. You absolutely do. You can't just expect people to know. You know, as product, you know, as a product community, within you've got to help people understand the customer. It's not just the product owners that are on point to understand the customer. The whole team need to understand the customer, and actually broader than that. And I say customer, actually it's probably customers as well, right? it's not going to be one, and it's not just going to be one type. So, that's hugely important. And then obviously how you go about measuring success, again, is something that will vary. It will and need a lot of consideration, right? You can look at KPIs, you can look at OKRs, you can look at all those great things, but you've got to relate it back to something that ultimately adds value to the customer in some way, or customers in some way, which then enables you to measure the quality of what you've delivered. And not just to what you've delivered, but also how you've delivered it. Coming back to Az's point about, you know, um, the right value in the right way. Yeah. So ways of working. There's layers. I'm going to go back to layers and layers and layers and onions and layers and
The recipe.
yeah, the recipe. That's a whole different thing. Let's not give too much away on the recipe book. Um, but we could talk for a long time, even more time than this, right? And we'll come back to a load of this kind of stuff throughout the series, because there's so many factors that play into it. And if I give you a bit of in my mind, I buy a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, my mum's got so many jigsaw puzzles. If anybody wants any jigsaw puzzles, hit me up, because I need to get them out of my mum's wardrobe. Right? I'll give them away free. I don't.
Question is, did they have all of the pieces, or is there missing pieces?
With this,
Or do you
right?
not find out till the end?
Don't find out until the end, because she does it from charity, right? But with a jigsaw puzzle, on the cover is a beautiful picture that you think you're going to get, right? So, but it takes all the pieces in that box to create that picture. Now, if you put that into software terms, that means there's all those pieces that in play. That's the people, that's how the team work, it's the ways of working, everything, all those little bits that come together to ultimately deliver that quality picture at the end, right? And it's for you to understand and figure out what all those pieces to that puzzle are. Yeah. But I do mean it. If anybody wants a jigsaw puzzle, then I'll happily ship them for free. I'm like, you know, um, if she watches it, she'll be having a fit right now. If she don't watch it, it's her own fault for not watching it. Cool. Okay, so just on that note, just wrapping things up a little bit. We said that we were going to give away some prizes, right?
We did.
We said we were going to give away some prizes. And again, thank you to everybody that's contributed. By contributing a comment that we've read out, and we've read them all, you've automatically put your name into the Quality Talks pot. I mean, we're going old
Drum
school
roll.
here. It's got paper in there and everything. Look, this will get a bit more professional, to be fair. I mean, I'm still looking for sponsors and, just to buy a pot. But yeah, we'll sort that out anyway. Okay, so I'm going to shake the pot. Anybody that's listening on Spotify now cannot see this at all, right? Or any other audio thing, but can you hear it?
Stu is actually shaking maracas.
I'm shaking maracas. I've got pieces of paper in here with names on, carefully typed, carefully cut out, right? So they're all roughly the same size, so I don't even know. What I'm going to do, to make it even more fair, is I'm going to draw two names, because that's as high as I can count. I'm going to draw two names, and I'm going to hold one name in each hand. And then I'm going to ask my beautiful assistant, Chris, to choose the hand. Yes? So he's either on this side or he's on this side, depending on how the recording comes out. I don't know yet. We'll
This will be a test to see if Stu knows he's left and right.
Okay, so I've got one. And hold on. It's a deep pot. I got another. There we go. I got another. Yeah, and it's only one. I don't want to make another. Right, so Mr. Henderson. Left or right?
I'll go with left. That'll be your left,
My
my
left.
right.
Your right.
It'll be it's the one that's closest to your fish tank for the viewers who are watching it.
Okay. And for the viewers, and for anybody that isn't watching it, I'm waving my hand, which helps you not at all. Right. So, okay. So, drum roll, please. The winner of the first ever Quality Talks podcast merch giveaway is David Mully. Yeah, baby.
Way!
Hey. So,
Well done, mate.
when David's listening to this, he'll be like, well, what does that actually mean? I better explain what it actually means, right? So, what it means is that we will be in touch with you, David. I mean, Chris knows you anyway, so that's a really big help. And you'll have options around what merch you want. So you can choose a t-shirt, you can choose a hat. We're going to get some other stuff printed. So we're going to get some water bottles printed, stickers, all that kind of stuff. So we can throw a few other bits in. But yeah, we'll be in touch to figure that out, and we'll get that winging its way to you. Caveat is, obviously, once you've got it, put it on, post a picture on LinkedIn, tag
Wherever
us,
you may be.
wherever you may be. I mean, come on, there are limitations, but yeah, we just want to get that out there. We want to get the brand out there. We want to get the podcast out there. We want to advertise, and any help anybody can do to do that, we just really, really appreciate it. So, and again, thank you to everybody that's commented.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for all of your support.
Yeah,
Really, really appreciate it.
we really appreciate it. So, just wrapping things up really, really quickly, right? I'm going to throw this out there to the listeners and the viewers, right? And this will probably factor into a future episode. In fact, it will factor into a future episode. This is why we're doing it. So, everything we've talked about, how deep we've got, how mind-blowing all the things are, just take a moment and ask yourself this question. Could testing ever equal quality? And I'm going to leave it there. Right? So what I'd love you to do is we'll actually put that up on the LinkedIn page as well. But please add your comments to that on the YouTube channel, because we want to just gather some thoughts around it. There's a lot of talk where testing and quality sort of get mixed up and stuff like that. But I'm genuinely interested to think, is there a scenario where testing does actually equal quality? So I'll be really I mean, philosophical, deep answers. Love that, right? So however we want to do it. But this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this, and I think, yeah, we'll definitely be coming back to some of this stuff in the future, no doubt. But Chris, I mean, wrapping things up. Let's wrap it up, my friend. You go for it.
I mean, for one, I've got a promise for the viewers who are watching that this will be an iterative process, and Stu has set the bar, like I mentioned last time, within his room with all of his cool tech and gadgets and the Quality Talks podcast. And like anything, you start out with a blank canvas, like I have here. So in future episodes, we might see some merch and material and go into the backdrop. And yeah, so keep tuned for that. That's a promise to the viewers out there that will do that. But thanks very much for listening into this episode. And again, like Stuart mentioned, for all of your comments and those who have liked and subscribed, listened like on Spotify and YouTube, and commented through our LinkedIn platform. Stay tuned for the next episode. We'll be in touch shortly via our platforms to say what the topic's going to be about next time. We may have special guest on next time. We may not. If this is something that might interest you, then by all means reach out to us, and we'll see if we can get you on and explore some of the concepts with us as well. But until then, take care and keep listening.
Yeah,
Thanks,
keep
everyone.
listening. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and give us your
Share.
feedback. Share. Yo, share. Don't forget to share. Yes, absolutely. Those strangers in the streets are still around. Let them know. Yeah, echo everything Chris said. Thank you, everyone. Take care. And thanks for watching and listening. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.